That is all killer.
Hey, so you like Smash Ultimate?
Yeah.
You want to learn about Smash Bros. Melee?
No, I'm not really into esports.
Unbelievable. Looks like I got some persuading to do. Let me tell you about what esports is, how it compares to real sports, the business behind it, and why Smash Bros. Melee is the best esports to watch. Alright, so before I get you sold on Melee, first I gotta get you sold on esports. So what are esports? Well, as many of you know, esports is a shortened title for electronic sports. And it pretty much is just video games played competitively for an audience. Now what you also might know is esports are pretty looked down upon. And honestly, I don't really know why. I think the main reason is that sports are seen as physical activities where two teams compete against each other, and esports really lacks that physical aspect. But let's be real with ourselves. Darts is considered a sport. So I'm not sure that physical activity part is really all that necessary. What about some other similarities? Well, Nikita Kromov, who is a computer science researcher who's actually published a lot of computer science articles but has recently moved towards more esports related topics, did a study where she took athletes of traditional sports, non-athletes, and esports professionals, had them all play the same game and measured things like what button they pressed, how much they moved a mouse, where they looked on the screen, and actually found that the esports professionals and the athletes had some similarities in their metrics. Now, obviously not in pure tech skill, but in things like reaction time, how they adapted to situations. So even some of the skills are transferable. What about other influences? Well, Rory Summerly, who was an old game design consultant who's now turned into a researcher, works at Falmouth University, has some great esports work, did a study on how esports has become institutionalized, which is just a fancy word for how its rule set has become standard and has moved from a casual activity to a professional activity. And he actually found that the same path that sports took from being casual to competitive is the exact same path that esports are taking. So even the way they are kind of becoming established is very similar. So why should we care as college students? Well, two main reasons. The first one, this is a very fast-growing and promising industry. So Natalia Lockman, who is the head of economics at a university in Ukraine, did a study on the growth rate of esports throughout the year and found that on average, it has been growing at a rate of 30% per year, which is really good. And in 2020, it's projected to break the $1 billion total revenue mark, which is insane. So as we were going through our undergrad career at Baylor and our respective degrees as business, communications, computer science, this presents itself as a innovative, fast-moving, on-the-rise industry that we could take a job in and probably have a pretty successful career in. The second main reason, the entertainment factor. So as we see every Saturday, Baylor cancel yet another football game, instead of moping around wondering what can do, we can turn on esports. Esports has thrived in the COVID season because it is already mostly online, so the transition was not that bad, and they've been able to bounce back really quickly and are already having a lot of high-level tournaments going on. So now that I got you sold on esports, let's talk about Melee. Melee, the beautiful game, probably my favorite video game of all time, and what I think is the esport that you should watch for two main reasons. Now, you may be wondering, how can you say Melee is your favorite game when you just did a speech on Smash Ultimate? Well, there's a main reason for that, and that is because Melee is hard. So on the screen right now, I'm going to show you a little clip that breaks down about 10 seconds of gameplay in Super Smash Bros. Melee. So on the top of the screen, you can see the button inputs that the user is putting in, and in the middle of the screen, you can see what their character is doing. So now let's watch everything we just saw in real time. Yeah, it's pretty fast. Somebody get these guys a pair of Dickies Flex jeans because they are moving. The game is insanely technical and requires so many button inputs, and that makes it so much more fun to watch than it is to play, because once you get an understanding of what these players are doing, when you see them do crazy stuff, it's just that much more hype. If everybody could shred on the guitar like Eddie Van Halen, he probably wouldn't have been as popular. It's the fact that you know it's so hard is what makes it appealing. Rest in peace. The second main reason is the history. So Super Smash Bros. Melee is actually 19 years old. It is the oldest popular esports game that's still around today. And if you don't believe it's popular, here's a chart of some of its viewership milestones from last year's tournaments. And for reference, McLean Stadium can house 45,000 people. So there are still a ton of people watching. How can this game still be so popular? Well, the main reason is the community. So Super Smash Bros. Melee was never supposed to be competitive. In fact, Nintendo, the company that created it, tried everything in its power to shut down Melee tournaments. They sent cease and desists out, discouraged people from hosting tournaments. They did all sorts of stuff, but it is still going strong. It's because the community is so passionate about it. There's still new tech being discovered today, new players coming in, shaking up the meta. It is just super exciting to watch. And the history is super interesting as well. There's actually a documentary on YouTube called The Smash Brothers, which goes over how Melee started and how it got to where it is today. And I highly, highly, highly recommend watching it. It's super interesting, and it just shows you some of the personalities of Melee, some of the popular players, and it's just awesome to watch, and it makes it just that much more fun to follow and to keep track of today. So let's recap what we talked about. We talked about what esports are, the similarities between esports and normal sports, how esports is becoming institutionalized today. We've talked about the business side of esports, why that's important, how it's a super growing field, why it's important to us in both business and entertainment. We also talk about what Melee is, what makes it great, and why I think it is one of the best esports for you to watch today. Hopefully you've agreed and you've learned a couple things. Go out, watch that Smash documentary, maybe look up a couple Melee tournaments. I recommend watching Apex 2015. That's a great tournament to start on. And hey, maybe pick up the game yourself. You'll never know what you might learn. You'll never know if you love playing it. And maybe we can play one day. But I swear, if I find out that any of you became